My next guest is Paul Boissonneault. He's a board member with the Association and Fire Chief of the Oakville, Ontario Fire Department. And we've talked before about the need to increase our national response to fires in this country. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
What are you thinking as you're listening to that evacuee talk about, fleeing with clothes on her back, her 4 kids, pretty much, one bag?
It's heart-wrenching. Certainly on behalf of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, I want to offer my, our thoughts and prayers to all the evacuees associated with Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Manitoba. And we certainly send our regrets and condolences to the family and friends and community of the deceased in Manitoba, as well as the firefighter injuries that have taken place. We send our support and strength to all of the personnel on the front lines and to all my colleagues who are dealing with these wildfires. This further exemplifies what we've been talking about for a number of years now, and that the National Fire Administration is absolutely required in order to have that intersection of the provincial wildfire agencies as well as the federal policymakers to ensure that there's a succinct coordination of the resources. We're dealing with unprecedented times across this country, and I guess I shouldn't say unprecedented anymore, because we've been seeing it now for 23, 24, and 25. We have 93 fires that are burning out of control as of today. There's been over 1,600 wildfires to date in 2025. We've had 1.4 million hectares burned thus far. And specifically in Manitoba, there's 15 fires, but we're not talking about remote fires. We're talking about not solely remote. We're talking about fires that are impinging upon towns, communities, cities.
Yeah, they sure are. I want to interject there and focus. I just want to turn us to response here, because you're right. You and I have been talking about the possibility or need for a national response to be in a different coordinated way. I also just want to interject, because we're using the word hectares a lot. All of us are, of course. A hectare, by the way, is, if you think about a track and field, right, the loop, 1 hectare is the inside of that. Winnipeg's 46,000 hectares. The fire burning in the Whiteshell right now is about 4 times the size of Winnipeg, just so people can have sort of images of this. We have had BC firefighters, Alberta firefighters. We've had personnel coming to help us coordinate it, and firefighters coming from the States to Manitoba to help us in this emergent moment. How would a nationally coordinated system that you've been pressing for change the responses that we're seeing? Like, if we had that in place, how do you think that would maybe have helped us in this moment, or in the future could help us in moments like these?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I think on the preparatory phase side of things, it would have been started long before the actual response, because once the response is required, you're essentially chasing your tail after something is well established. So ensuring that we have the right resources at the right place at the right time, and those decisions are made from a policy level, is so vitally important. We have the ability to certainly help our neighbors, but what we're seeing is there's only 2 provinces across this country right now on the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center's interactive map that aren't dealing with wildfires there in their own provinces. So the ability to help our neighbors is getting more and more challenged. You talked about firefighters coming from other locations. We've got firefighters coming from Australia and Mexico. Currently there is not a great process in place to provide the federal policymakers the right information about what resources are necessary. In some cases, it's not just about getting more people to the front lines. It's about ensuring that the coordination of those people are properly represented, so that they're not just coming in without a specific task and or expectation of what to do. In the absence of the National Fire Administration, our group, the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, has been dealing with humane societies, has been dealing with food banks, has been dealing with industry, as an example, and all of these things should be facilitated through a National Fire Administration. We are the only country as part of the G7 that does not have a National Fire Administration. We've been advocating for years. We have a turnkey solution ready. We can put it in place before the G7 meetings. And it's almost ironic that the G7 meetings are coming here and our country is literally burning.
Can I ask you in our last minute here about jurisdiction? Because in Manitoba, of course, we watched provincial responses to some of the evacuation efforts, and then there were First Nations in this province that were waiting for the federal reaction because jurisdictionally they're under the federal government, their own governments, and then the federal government by extension for emergency response. If we had a National Fire Service response coordination, that office you're talking about in terms of prep, would you need to break down all of those barriers as well? So we're just looking at helping Canadians, period.
So it would be about helping Canadians, period. But there isn't the jurisdictional challenges that are kind of foreseen from the federal level. There's actually, it's quite an easy system that's set up, no different than in Japan or Australia or many of the other countries. This isn't about jurisdictional control. It's about that intersection of provincial wildfire does not have the same abilities on structural firefighting as the local authorities having jurisdiction, meaning the fire chiefs. So it's about when things are happening in wildfires outside city limits, and then all of a sudden it meets city limits, that's where that coordination of resources is really, really critical. And right now, in the absence thereof, our colleagues are calling upon their mutual aid partners or friends within communities close and trying to establish incident command posts and work together. It's not the boots on the ground issues that are creating the challenges. It's the oversight from the federal and provincial levels that are creating the challenges. And we have a solution to make that better.
Thanks for being with us, Paul, in this moment. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And again, thoughts to everyone that are involved. Safety for everybody.
Paul Boissonneault on Information Radio on CBC Live with us, board member of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs and fire chief of the town of Oakville Fire Department. He's mentioning that in this moment, as there's gathering, that the country's burning because, of course, Manitoba, Saskatchewan in a state of emergency. The Premier is about to meet with the Prime Minister for the first time to discuss their way forward politically.